Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are going to be comparing the T-42 to its non-premium version, Tier 8 American Medium, the Pershing, along with the premium version, Tier 8s, the M46KR, T-25 Pilot 1, and the Super Pershing. We're also going to compare the T-77 against the T-69, given that there are no other premium auto-loading mediums for the Americans. So starting with the T-42, its DPM, fairly similar to the Pershing, in fact fairly similar to all of them. Slightly lower, definitely lower than the Pilot 1 because this thing does have a very fast rate of fire at 8.02. This T-42, the new one, fairly standard penetration. It's got 40 extra alpha damage. We do not know the module damage currently, but its rate of fire, 6.59. It's going to be a lot slower given that it's nearly 2 seconds longer reload time than any of the other tanks in this list. All of these guns have a 90mm caliber gun. We do not know the shell velocity or max range as yet, as they are not released. We will find those out in time. Now the ammo capacity, 60, bringing this tank up to being able to do 16,800 damage, which is the exact same as the Pershing and the M46KR, and a lot higher than the Pilot 1 and the Super Pershing. Now the aiming time, 2 seconds. Fairly standard for this level of gun, for this caliber. 2 seconds compared to the fastest being the Pilot at 1.92. The slowest being the M46KR at 2.4, so you're in the mid-range there. With a dispersion of 0.36, which is the same as the Super Pershing, same as the M46KR, and 0.01 worse than the Pershing and the Pilot 1. So they're all very, very similar guns in that respect. Elevation and depression angles are all the same for these tanks. 20 degrees up, 10 degrees down. And they've all got 360-degree rotation on their turret. Now the forward speed on this thing, it's quick. It's 51.5 kilometers an hour forwards and 20 in reverse. These are all 20 in reverse, except for the Super Pershing, which goes 18. This is the second fastest on this list, behind the Pilot 1, which goes 55 forwards. So its mobility is definitely not a downside to it, especially when it's got a specific power of 15.6. We do not know the terrain resistances as yet, but we'll get those on release of the tanks, or at least when they are available on the Super Test server. The weight, 32,000. I wouldn't go around ramming too many things in this tank. Maybe against some lower tiered lighter vehicles that you know you're going to be able to damage on a ram, but I wouldn't trust it. Okay, now the turret traverse. 37 degrees per second. 2.5 degrees slower than the Pershing and the M46KR. Definitely a lot faster than the Super Pershing, but slower than the Pilot 1. But in regards to the tank traverse, it goes 2.5 degrees faster than the Pershing and the M46KR, meaning that if you're turning the tracks with the turret, or the turret with the tracks, you shouldn't feel too much of a difference in regards to this tank versus the Pershing or the M46KR. And we do not know the effectiveness on hard, medium, soft terrains to be able to know the traverse on any of those. Now the hull armor, 102mm on the front. It's about the same with these two tanks. In fact, all three of these tanks, just the Super Pershing does have the sloped armor, making it more annoying to go through. Sloped and spaced armor, I should say. 76 on the sides, same as the M46KR and the Pershing, but 38 on the rear. I would not go around letting people get to your backside because they will be able to pen high explosive. But the turret armor, 216mm on the front. This thing is going to be a hull down monster, especially if you're using all 10 degrees of that gun depression, they're not going to be able to go through you because you're going to have your front sloped like that. So their shells are just going to bounce off and they've only got your turret to aim at. 64 millimeters of armor on the sides. That's about the same as the pilot. 76 on the rear. That is the same as the M46KR. Bit better than the Pershing. Bit better than the pilot. And the same as the Super Pershing. We do not know the armor on the tracks. The health, 1,350. Slightly lower than all of these. But I'm sure having that 216 millimeters, of turret armor will definitely help you out in the long run. The view range on it, 380 meters, the lowest of the lot, though you should still be able to get that up to maximum with Brothers in Arms, Recon, vents, everything. Optics, that's the word. Sorry, just having a mental blank. Fire chance, I've only assumed that's going to be 20 just to keep it in line with the rest of these. Doesn't cost anything because it is a premium tank, obviously, and the shell cost shouldn't be too much more than the current variants. So all in all, this tank seems fairly balanced. It does not seem to pay to win to me, though these are only super test values. They are subject to change on release or even during the test. So I guess we'll find out in time. And when this tank does become available to play on the super test, I'm definitely going to be able to get you guys some gameplay of it to see my actual thoughts on how it performs in game. Now, moving on to the T77. It has a it has a higher penetration than the T69, It's got a lot higher damage at 360 versus 240, but because it's got such a long reload time in comparison, the rate of fire goes a long way down to 4.29 rounds per minute instead of, unlike the T69 at 7.53, nearly doubled or nearly half on the T77, bringing the DPM down to 1,544 roughly. It does have a 3-shell clip. It's got 3 shells in the clip with a 1,080 potential clip damage over 4 seconds from the first one. So this thing is going to get that damage out really quickly in comparison to the T69. Intra-clip reload of 2 seconds, same as the T69. Caliber, it's 120 millimeters, which means you're going to overmatch more armor than on the T69, which only has a 90 millimeter gun. Ammo capacity. This thing only holds 12 clips though. You should not be able to get all of those out. Really, if you manage to get all of those out, congratulations to you. But in a normal game, I don't think many people are going to be able to get all of that out. It does have a potential damage of just shy of 13,000 compared to the T69's 9,600. Aim time on this, 2.3 seconds, a lot better than the T69's aim time, 2.78. Dispersion, 0.37, 0.01 worse than the T69's. So not too bad really. You might be a little bit less accurate, but it does have a lot of damage, so this is very, very small nerf. 15 degrees up, 8 degrees down, 1 degree better up, 1 degree worse down. Kind of balances itself out, in my opinion. 360 degree gun traverse, turret traverse. Now, the forward speed, it is a lot slower. 3.5 degrees slower. 2 degrees slower in reverse, even because it does weigh nearly 50 tons nearly. It weighs just over 49 tons. 15 tons more than the T69. So if you feel like ramming something and you're going down a hill, you're probably okay to do so. I wouldn't go around ramming many heavy tanks, but definitely against some mediums, against the light tanks, and even some TDs, you should be perfectly fine. It does have a higher power to weight ratio because of this, because of the weight of it as well. and the engine power is 250 horsepower higher than the T69s. Now, turret traverse, 1.5 degrees worse. Tank traverse, very sluggish, 10 degrees worse. So this thing is going to feel very slow, trying to turn it around on the spot, trying to follow people that are trying to circle you, especially against the EBRs, those wheeled vehicles. They will be painful to follow, especially close range. Maybe not at a distance where you don't have to turn as fast. Hull armor, 120 on the front, 76 on the sides, and 35 on the rear. Slightly worse on the rear, but you've got an extra 19 millimeters on the front. Turret armor, same on the front, 45 millimeters, sorry, worse on the sides, and 13.5 millimeters worse on the rear. So if you're wanting to fight people, this thing's more going to be like a glass cannon. You're going to shoot those rounds and you're going to fall back until you're reloaded. I would not want to be sitting out in front of many people with such a low amount of armor. Its health, exactly the same as the T69, 1,350. View range, 380, same as the what were we saying before? The T42. That's it, I couldn't even remember the name of it. It's the same as that. You should be able to get it up with coated optics, vents, recon, brothers in arms. It should still be able to max out at 445 or even higher, especially if you're using the improved equipment. So that's all for today. That's all the stats of those new tanks that were announced to be on the super test very shortly. When those tanks do come out, I hope to get you guys some gameplay of them, see my actual thoughts, but for now, they do seem fairly balanced. This T77 seems very, very powerful in the short term. Just being able to blast someone for over 1,000 damage, and then if you're able to get away, even though it is slower, if you're able to get away and then you can blast again for another 1,000 damage, it does not seem like too bad of a tank. T42 seems fairly balanced, but I will get you guys some gameplay when they do come out. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow in the next video.